very easily using the internal switches, and then you can just pop it aside, and it's fairly big and chunky, and it does actually do a decent job of reducing the amount of noise. And it's worth noting that the case comes with removable filters on all its intakes, as well as 3 140mm fans, though I swapped these out for LED fans. Move to the bottom of the case and you'll find these huge case feet that do a very good job of allowing for good airflow if you do want to use a radiator in the bottom of the case, and this is what I ended up doing. Look to the top and you'll find the power button, a fan controller, headphone jack, microphone, and then 4 USB ports, 2 of which are 3.0 and 2 of which are 2.0. Move to the right hand side of the case and you'll find the huge acrylic window that does a great job of showing off all your parts. It is on the other side because this is an inverted case and is opened easily enough, and you can remove it as well, so if you actually want to work in the case it's easy enough without getting it hanging around in your face. Taking a look inside the case reveals that dual chamber design that pretty much every manufacturer these days is going for, but for good reason. It really does work. It allows you to see everything you want to see, hide everything that you don't, and just makes for a general better building experience. And this case was really nice to build in. I've done it twice now, both times was only about an hour or so, really nice and easy, and if you're a beginner it's a great case to get you started, but if you've done it 100 times you'll be thankful that everything is nice and easy and where you'd expect it to be. In terms of fan and radiator support, you get 3 140mm as standard, and you can fit a 280mm radiator on the front or at the bottom, or you can actually fit a 360 at the bottom. Elsewhere on the case you'll find that we have the magnetic dust filter that goes at the bottom of the case, and you can find this easily at the back. Very easy to remove and insert thanks to those magnets. And then the side panel on the left hand side of the case removes very easily, and it's nice to see that there's plenty of clearance, so if you don't want to do a great job cable managing you don't have to. And then at the top end of the case you'll find your power supply area as well as the 5 1/4 inch bay area. Now this is the one trade-off that you are going to have unfortunately by having these bays, is the fact that you will basically be giving up drive slots, as there are only 2 3 1/4 inch drive bays, so if you do want to use 3 hard drives then you're going to have to find a workaround as it's not really natively supported. But if you do want to use them, you just use these simple quick insertion caddies. Same with the SSDs, these are by far the best system I think on the market. Literally just slot them in, and then there's a little tab for easy removal as well. Everything's very easily laid out and it's very nice to build in. Cable management should be very simple. I didn't need to use a single cable tie, which was great, but if you do want to do a better job then it should be fairly simple for you to do so. Same goes for installing a radiator. This is also very simple. Just because it's at the bottom it makes it a lot easier to actually fit and install compared to if you're installing at the top. And once you add all the things like that together you get a really nice slick user experience. And it's kind of strange, isn't it? This is a case that's inverted. You would expect it to have a few quirks, you would expect it to have a few things that would have you reaching for the manual, but this just wasn't the case. And it's quite funny that the inverted case, the case that's a little bit different, is one of the easiest cases on the market to build in. But it's not just the building experience that I like about this case. The fact that it's got that very large side window means that you can easily see everything in the case. I did use a couple of Bit Phoenix purple LED strips to sort of light everything up. And overall, as long as you're looking at this from the right angle, you've got a case that really does show off all your hard work and make your components look their best. And I'm also a big fan of that acrylic door, as it makes it very easy to see all your components, as well as it's quite practical because it allows you to open up the case and actually see everything inside, as well as make some small changes if there's a loose cable or something that you want to quickly swap out. It's not flimsy either, and the sound dampening isn't too bad for an acrylic side window at all, and overall you can get something that is both quiet, efficient, and looks great as well. However, there are a few things to note, as it's not all sunshine and rainbows here. The main ones being hard drives. Don't forget it only supports 2 3 1/4 inch drives, so if you do want to do more you have to get an adapter for the 5 1/4 inch drives, or just go down the SSD route, which is probably what they're encouraging, so fair play. In terms of the acrylic window, if you look at it from the wrong angle you get this weird colour warping pattern, but this really isn't a big deal in the majority of situations. And the case as well is a fingerprint magnet, and it's very difficult to pick up, it's fairly slippy as well, so you are going to need a cloth if you're moving this thing around constantly. But those are pretty minor things really, not really anything that's going to put you off a purchase. The only other real thing that I would say I don't like about the case is if you do look at this from the right angle, or I should say the left angle, it does look a little bit boxy, especially in comparison to some of its competition. It would be nice to see something with a little bit more of a curve, or just something that's a little bit more out there. But overall, this is a cracking case. It's very easy to build in, it's very easy to get something that looks great, and it's very well priced as well, which is why it wins the Top Purchase Award. If you're in the market for something that's a little bit different, this is definitely something to consider. And so, that's the end of this review. Thank you so much for checking it out. Thank you so much to Corsair for providing this review sample, and of course for sponsoring the channel as always. If you do want to see a full build in this PC from start to finish, you can find it in the little eye. And if you do want to find different case reviews, you can check out the Fantex Evolve ATX Tempered Glass Edition, also in the top right hand corner of your screen. Don't forget to subscribe for more case reviews and other computer-based videos. Like this video if you enjoyed it, dislike it if you didn't, leave a comment down below, as well as follow me on @PCcentric for the latest news and just general goings on. And that's about it. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video.
It is becoming increasingly difficult to impress us, or the consumer, with something innovative in the enclosure market. This space is already filled with variety, and so the price, in my opinion, may be the one key competitive component for any brand. What's up guys, I'm Dimitri with Hardware Connects. Welcome to another video. Make sure to stay till the end because we have a very exciting and a little surprise coming your way. So on the review table today is the latest case from Corsair, the Carbide 600C, bringing us inverted motherboard layout, which has its benefits and drawbacks, and priced at $150 for both the windowed and the silent versions. It is a compelling full tower, one that may encourage someone to experiment with this new layout, so let's see if it's all worth it. Physical tour first. Just by looking at this case from the sidelines, it's actually kind of difficult to distinguish it as a Corsair chassis, unless you notice the small Corsair logo in the bottom right corner, and you might recognize the plastic side panels that was also found on the 760T. From a physical standpoint, I love the glass quote-unquote look of this panel, but for quality junkies out there, this might not pass. First, you can notice the plastic color difference at certain angles around the handle, and you can see it here on video from the slightly higher angle. I personally don't mind it. It's a very flexible panel given the rest of the frame is absolutely solid, and it actually reduces the weight of an already elephant case, which makes removal from its hinges that much easier, and the same goes for reinstallation. The rest of the case is very minimal, with a solid top panel where you find the I/O with 4 USB ports, chrome audio jacks, illuminated power button and reset button, plus a 3-speed fan controller for 3 fans, which are meant to complement the 3 fans included with the 600C. The front continues in the same format as the top, but with a visible separated door that opens to reveal dual 5¼ inch drive base. Now this metallic coating on the panel looks awesome, but any handling will be visible, so casual cleaning is required. Behind the panel we find a securely attached dust filter that covers every single millimeter of that intake, which is awesome, and the filter is dense enough to catch particles without interfering. Here we see two 140mm intake fans with spots for dual 120mm as well, mounted on strips for extra flexibility, and notice the front panel gap is wide enough for air to enter without any interference. Given the inverted ATX layout, the power supply is at the top, followed by 8 PCI slots and a third 140mm fan, and the 600C purposely stands on tall case feet that allows adequate room for either exhaust or intake for the cooling installation on the floor, which can house triple 120mm fans or dual 140mm with their respective radiator sizes. Removing the back panel, here's where you'll be installing your drives and handling all the cable management. So first we have 3 SSD caddies that are toolless and 2 3.5-inch drive brackets right above that. But that's it. On the one hand, I'm pretty disappointed with the limited storage options for this massive enclosure. Just look at it side to side to something like the H440. The 600C is way too wide to not offer any more storage options. And there's no additional drive cage options for the interior, and that can be seen as a negative. Now, on the flip side of that coin, perhaps this limitation is a benefit and maybe encouraging users to acquire larger capacity drives and sticking with less drives in total. But I still would have liked to see a drive cage of some sort on the inside. which from this view is very basic with large rubber grommets and a really open layout. And bam, this is the finished system inside the Corsair 600C, which was an easy breezy to assemble due to nothing being on the way and the power supply being inside its own chamber at the top. You can see just how much room there is from our 10.5-inch card till the front fans, so fitting a radiator on there in push-pull configuration will not be a problem, plus there's nothing restricting airflow entrance, which makes cool air delivery that much more effective. The top chamber has this angular piece that extends beyond the power supply, which is installed with the fan facing down to intake air from the main chamber for exhaust, and you can see the two drive caddies here that are somewhat exposed to the cooler. My H105 cooler went on the floor with fans set to exhaust, which is a good looking setup, but here's the thing, with everything inverted, you may not like the non-inverted elements of your hardware, like the text on the GPU and some smaller text on the motherboard. The GPU block can be rotated easily to display correctly, but this is something you'll have to live with this type of layout. For cable management, it seems like you have a lot of room to work with, but not enough cable tie hoops around the SSD brackets to cleanly route all the cables into that one corner grommet. But other than that, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out, but there seems to be more work here than expected, again just because of the enclosure seems to offer so much room and because it's so wide, but in reality it's not as easy to work in as expected. Now I wanted to do temperature tests to see if there would be any difference between this inverted layout versus a more standard ATX layout. So I ran my idle and stress tests on the CPU and the GPU, literally just flip the case around. It looks more familiar and in line to 95% of the cases out there, to find that the standard ATX layout is 1 degree cooler than the default orientation of the case, which is kind of strange. 1 degree difference is not significant, but then you would have the window on the right, so the computer can be on your left. And so in the end, I don't mind this inverted motherboard layout at all. The case is well equipped against dust and all types of hardware and water cooling, but I simply don't see a unique factor here aside from the massive stack panel. I wish we had more drive slots, perhaps a thinner frame, but it's actually pretty clear that the case favors more advanced water cooling setups. I wish we also had more cable management options. I mean, only 3 cable tie points, that's not enough for what this aims to achieve. At the end of the day, the Carbide 600C is one of the options if you want the case on your left so the components are visible, but it's really up to you to decide if you see this inverted layout as a benefit. So I hope you guys enjoyed this review. Make sure to go Corsair on that like button. And now onto the exciting surprise. So we've teamed up with Massdrop to give one of you guys a really awesome gift with the holidays coming up. The 34-inch ultra-wide IPS curved monitor, the LG 34 UC97S. So all you have to do is sign up to Massdrop using the link in the description below, and everybody who is already signed up via that link will be included in the draw. The winner will be selected a week from today, and Massdrop will contact you directly. I am ready. Are you ready? Maybe I should have like an off-camera character that I can talk to. Can't use Jack. Ooh, this is gonna be a good one. It's this time of year again when I go into our case review playlist, refresh my memory, and give you guys the Case Awards of 2016. Woo! As usual, the rules are simple. We can only nominate cases that have been released and reviewed by us in 2016, and you can check out our 2015, 2014, and 2013 Case Awards linked in the description. Now here's an interesting tidbit. Hurricanux has published a total of 174 case reviews. If you were to watch them from beginning to end, it would take you roughly 1300 minutes or 21 hours, or an average 7 minutes per case. You guys are welcome for our efficiency. Alright, enough chatter. The categories for Case Awards are the best ITX option, the best budget case, the best first-time builder case, the best tempered glass upgrade case, seeing this was a very major trend this year, the most innovative case, and the new category, the fail compilation, this one is a fun one, and finally, the case of the year. Let the 2016 Case Awards begin. Woo! The new NZXT Air RGB fans can be daisy-chained together for awesome lighting cohesion in your build with vibrant and accurate color illumination, all easily controlled through the Hue Plus via CAM software. Full details in the description below. And so the best ITX option for 2016 goes to the Nano S from Fractal Design. Now, it's a little unconventional seeing it's just a shrunken version of every Fractal case ever, but this formula works with a simple body, a completely open interior that easily fits a loaded system, including a full-size ATX power supply, and you can even fit a 240mm radiator in the front, all while still having storage capacity for dual SSDs and a 3.5-inch drive. And yes, for an ITX system it's an overkill, but that's what the market wanted in 2016. Which is why the runner-up is the NZXT Manta ITX that follows a similar approach with a large body for ITX system without compromises like a dedicated power supply shroud and clever interior frame to hide the cables with a 240mm radiator support at the top and the front, making this the ultimate water cooling case in its class. And actually the balloon side panels are this way on purpose for additional space for cable management and totally unique character. And the final runner-up is the Sentry ITX that unfortunately isn't available yet, but this case is the perfect example of true dedication to small form factor builds with its 7-liter volume, Sentry-like stance and steel body that presents some challenges with assembly. However, with support for SFX and SFX-L power supplies, full-size graphics card on the top chamber, and the ability to do this with your system. The next category for the budget enclosure is surprisingly empty, slim pickings out there. But the Corsair 270R is the cheapest case we've reviewed at $59. The interior frame on the 270R is fantastic with a smart power supply shroud that hides and complements cable management. This open area has a lot of potential for good cooling setups, and storage options are pretty good with dual SSDs and 3.5-inch drives. This by no means though is a complete package, as top dust filter is not included, plus a crappy red LED fan is present and the I/O is facing the wrong direction. But at its core, you get a guaranteed solid building experience for $59. But rivaling that is a $69 Z9 Neo by Zalman with surprising list of features like a nice side window with a concealing power supply shroud that has a drive cage built in, with decent cable management, plus you can install SSDs on the interior side, although they're not really oriented properly. And there are also 2 removable 5.25-inch drive bays, something that is not found on majority of 2016 releases. The biggest selling point here are 5 included fans, 2 of which are blue LED, so each slot is already occupied for excellent out-of-box cooling. Moving on to the most popular category for the best first-timer builder case, we have the Fantex P400S that makes a fantastic first impression with its Iron Man type mask looks, the built-in RGB lighting in front of the case with option to connect an LED strip that will match the case lighting, and I love the completeness of the P400 series with sound damping material in all the needed places, including top covers with dust filters depending if you're installing fans here or not, and the open interior is a very good recipe for hassle-free assembly without any hardware compatibility issues. Cable management is easy with included Velcro straps, and storage capacity is decent with dual SSD caddies and a drive cage. This is the mid-tower that has it all and an awesome place to start for your first build. The runner-up is the Corsair 400C, and I love this case because it's a brilliant collection of Corsair's best features, including the large side panel that swivels to open, one of my favorite power supply shroud designs with its 2-piece approach, so you can hide that drive cage and move the front portion back a little bit more to make room for the front radiator, and everything is covered with dust filters including the top panel. And for storage, I appreciate the convenience of toolless SSD installation and the removable drive cage in front of the power supply. The assembly process is very rewarding and would complement first-time builders very well. The next category is the best tempered glass upgrade case, which goes to the S340 Elite by NZXT, simply because for the $30 price premium you get a lot of new, including a glass panel with a blackout perimeter to hide the frame inside. The glass is only slightly tinted but without any color cast, which is good, and installation is proper with rubber inserts that hold the panel first. The boxy frame looks absolutely stunning with a piece of glass on the side, And on top of that, you get an extra SSD mount with proper cable orientation, an expanded top I/O with HDMI pass-through and extra USB ports, and improved cable management with pre-installed clips to simplify cable routing, and also a magnetic puck that can be used to hold headphones or help with cable organization. The S340 Elite is now the benchmark to beat on what it means to upgrade a case. The runner-up is the Corsair 460X that adds a glass on all the immediately visible sides that looks absolutely gorgeous, especially with the RGB fans that you can control via the top I/O for color only, and they highlight why that front piece of glass is important. And you're putting your entire system on display with slightly tinted and warmer toned glass that sits on long thumb screws and not as easy to operate as many other tempered glass cases, but it sure is gorgeous. To complement the looks, the corner support structure has been minimized so it's not as visible, while the rest of the frame is based on the 400C. And the third runner-up is the gorgeous Evolve ATX TG from Fantex that takes a more risky approach by placing glass on both sides. On the main side it's perfect, the glass is shaped to complement the front panel with the top and bottom extensions and the standard blackout perimeter, behind which padding is installed to prevent glass on metal contact. But on the right side there's also glass, revealing the cable guts and something you might not want to show off unless serious work is put to route everything perfectly, which I see as a welcome challenge. Moving on to the next category for the most innovative case, this easily goes to the Streacom DB4, a unique aluminum cube that is unlike anything I've worked with in the past. It's a fanless design, first of all, everything is passively cooled, it's an ITX form factor with GPUs up to 200mm supported. There is a proprietary power supply limitation, which is not so nice, and not an easily accessible I/O at the bottom. But this totally unconventional approach to turn the aluminum panels into the heatsink for the CPU is so awesome. People may look at this and say it looks like a CPU cooler, which is technically correct, where you assemble the cooling contraption that goes from the CPU and that attaches to the side panel, and that's what handles all the cooling. It's not an easy case to work in, but the universal brackets are awesome that you can use for drives, power supply, and other accessories that you can mount anywhere around the square frame. It's cases like these that encourage innovative features to be rolled out for the mainstream market and highlight the lack of forward thinking for many cases in 2016, which is the perfect segue into our next category of the fail compilation, highlighting the bad decisions that did not need to happen, starting with the B-Phoenix Front ATX that from a spec sheet look great, but with horrendous side panels that are thin, wavy sheets of metal with terrible mounting. That also carries over to the weak metal frame on the top that cannot even properly accommodate a radiator because spacing is not correct. The long dust filter at the front is removable, but it's only removable from the bottom. Who thought this was a good idea? And finally, interior SSD mounts stick out way too much that would interfere with the front radiator. Moving on to the Riotoro Prism 1280, a case with so many fails. You're not world's first anything, and even if this was the truth, it's really nothing to brag about, with the garbage fans that are super loud and low quality lighting that is deceiving compared to what you see on the site. The drive cage is riveted despite having fan slots right underneath with the dust filter, and nobody clearly built a system with an SSD in the drive cage, as the drive caddy blocks the silent cables. And we also have a lot of space that is wasted in this power supply chamber just for the sake of it. Or what about the Silent Base 600 from Be Quiet, recycling a really old interior frame that is not user-friendly, totally restrictive front airflow intake, and only a tiny ventilation opening at the top to choke the fans, all for the sake of silence, by forcing you not to install any fans. Hey Corsair, the 570X feels completely unfinished. I don't care about all the glass if I cannot properly visually block the power supply chamber that is open to all to see. And also, why is it that a $59 case has a better power supply shroud? How does that make any sense? What about lighting inconsistency on the two illuminations? Maybe link them to the RGB fans, which is the whole point of this case after all? That would be nice. EVGA, why does your case look like a rear projection television? I realize it's way different from anything else, so let's not be overly judgmental, but with a case so large, it feels surprisingly tight to work in, because the bottom frame is non-removable and the power supply sits way too far back that might result in some cables not having enough reach. And the strangest thing is case orientation that is actually meant to face you like this, with a flock of cables running out on the side and not the rear of the case, while the power supply cable is still visible, defeating this whole cleanliness approach. Hey Silverstone, PMO1, NZXT called, they want their designer back. Also, why can I not install any fans above the frame when the plastic top panel is so high? This should not happen if you want to attract the mainstream builder to potential AIO plants. Now listen, cases released in 2016 means they've been in production for the last 2 to 4 years. The pipeline from idea to sales is a long one, which is why this failed compilation in this video is important to highlight all the errors that we hopefully won't see moving forward. Which brings us to my favorite category, Case of the Year. That without a doubt goes to the Be Quiet Dark Base 900 Pro. It absolutely nails on all the market trends, including tempered glass, fan controller, built-in RGB lighting, a wireless Qi charger at the top that works beautifully, and so this case truly is pushing the boundaries for customization and can adapt based on users' needs with height adjustable motherboard tray if you require extra clearing at the top for like push-pull or very thick radiators. You can also rotate the motherboard tray for an inverted system, while every single piece of the interior is modular and can be configured based on your needs, with individual drive caddies that are metal, multiple slots for the power supply that all accommodate different motherboard tray locations. And all this modularity doesn't feel like an afterthought, it's very well polished. Radiators up to 420mm are supported at the top and the front. It's also carpet friendly as the bottom panel is solid, so intake around the side is consistent with the design language. And I love the feature set that allows experimentation. It is also future-proof and deserves to be our 2016 Case of the Year. Now it's very interesting how fast built-in RGB lighting and tempered glass as the two major trends for 2016 really spread through the case industry, and I'm having a tough time figuring out what will be that trend in 2017. I'm hoping for more customization and modularity on a larger scale. So if you want an ATX system, you add a few pieces to the enclosure to make it larger to accommodate for larger motherboards, and vice versa. That type of customization would be so cool. But what do you think? Leave them in the comments down below. What would be the next big trend in the case industry? And before we conclude, a quick message from our sponsor. Assembling your Vertigear gaming chair just got a whole lot easier with a simple insert mechanism off the back seat onto the side rails, so you mount the side screws much faster. A true one-man job. Assembling made easy right away. Now this would be our 4th annual Case Awards. We'd love to wrap up the year with this type of video. But there are a few cases that have been delivered to the studio quite late, did not get the hardware connects with each shipment, which are the Cooler Master Master Case Maker 5T. T stands for Turbo. We have an ITX enclosure that I'm sure will be fantastic. The Cooler TBX, they actually won an award to Pocket X, and the Define C from Fractal that refreshes the interior with a power supply strap. So stay tuned for full videos on those cases in 2017. And on behalf of myself and the entire Hardware Connect crew, we want to thank you for being such an awesome community. Happy holidays. We'll see you in the next year. But what do you guys think? Get the next year rolling with a... Whoa, it got really dark. How long have I been recording for? Whew.
So what's up guys, I'm Dmitry with Hardware Canucks, and I gotta tell you, it's never a dull moment here when it comes to cases in the studio. One